Two things going on. One is spotlight on global innovations, and another is global Ayurveda. Which one are we after? Is there
To be honest, I think we are the first session, as far as I know.
because I'm seeing in phone two links, YouTube links going live.
I think if you see the agenda, we are first in this unlocking the transformational power of digital or whatever. 4:30 is the first session.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll wait for Arun and team to help us.
Very good evening to the panelists. Myself, Arun Roberts from CII. I will be supporting you for today's session. Mr. Prakash, session chairman. Sir, we are all set to go live, so we could go ahead and start the session.
Okay, I will go over from here.
There is a lot of, sorry, Prakash, there's a lot of background noise. I'm not sure if you're hearing it.
Yeah, can everyone else go on mute other than
the speaker? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's cleared now. Yes. Fantastic. Arun, can we get started?
Yeah, we can start it, Mr. Prakash. Yeah, you can start the session.
Okay, awesome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session on CII Connect session on unlocking the transformational power of digital technologies. This session is going to be focused on retail, and I'm going to moderate this session. I'm Prakash, and I lead digital transformation as part of Cognizant Interactive. Retail probably is one industry that has embraced digital technologies ahead of times, be it e-commerce, be it mobile apps, or even providing modern experiences through AR, VR, voice, and so on. And it's an industry which has worked constantly to address the I would say elevated experience consumers have on different brands, which is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and so on. I think retail has worked really hard to meet those high expectations. And personally, me having spent 23 years in retail, I've seen retail evolve from store-based retail to e-commerce, siloed channels to omni-channel. Today, there's a lot of retailers and big brands working on integrating physical and digital, providing personalized experiences, and so on. And this is one industry where there's constant transformation. And at the moment, digital is playing a very important role. We are also at a very interesting juncture, unprecedented times now. And retail is one industry that's been hard hit by this pandemic, retail, consumer goods, and these kind of industries. I'm sure we are all very interested to understand how big brands, how retailers are reacting to this, how supply chains are adapting to this, pandemic situation. We all want to know what is the new normal and things like that. And to discuss exactly that, we have a great panel out here. In our panel, we have Ms. Priyadar. She's the Chief Digital Officer of Amway, and she comes from a prolific background across industries like FMCG, telecom, retail, and finance. And she's extremely passionate about consumer-facing technologies and innovation and things like that. We also have Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed is the CIO of Landmark Group, a very large chain based out of Middle East and India. And I think Mr. Mohammed has done a prolific job transforming IT at Landmark Group and done a multitude of initiatives which has driven business agility, reduced complexity, and enhanced the customer experience. We also have Mr. Krishnan. Mr. Krishnan is the Chief Digital and Information Officer at Titan. And under his able leadership, Titan is reinventing itself as a digital organization. And there's some amazing work that Mr. Krishnan and team are doing. It'll be fantastic to hear from him. We also have Mr. Vetri. Vetri comes from the Six Sigma type of a background, and he currently is part of Powerfleet. He specializes in blockchain and related technologies aiding transformation of supply chain. So I think Mr. Vetri can bring in a very different perspective around how supply chains are adapting, to modern retail situation and so on. With this, I wanted to start a discussion, and I wanted to seek opening comments from all our panelists. Probably we'll start with Ms. Priya. If you can give in a 30-second, 1-minute overview on what is Amway doing, and any quick insights on how you're adopting digital, and then we'll deep dive as things goes. But Ms. Priya, we'll start with you. If you could unmute, Priya.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Prakash. Hello, everyone. My name is Priya. I head digital for Amway Enterprises. Amway is a global organization, turnover of more than around $9 billion. We are present in more than 50 countries, and India is one of our top 4 markets. India is in a very unique position right now for Amway. I mean, everybody who hears of Amway hears of distributors, but for the last 2-3 years, we've realized the power of customer, and that's where we are kind of pivoting towards. The products that we have, the portfolio that we have is more towards customer, and now that we are talking about immunity everywhere, that's where we squarely fit in. So our Ayurveda range, our immunity products are something that are growing like crazy. Now, how digital plays a role in it, it's very interesting. It's really interesting because till about 2 years ago, we were more of a store-based company. We were more of a distributor-led company, and customer used to be through distributors only. But now we are directly trying to reach to the customers. Our customer experience is very critical for us. We have our own e-commerce website. We are looking to the new technology, like Prakash just said. How can we design solutions which work for the customer? How can we make it easier for the customer to buy the products and then keep coming back? So these are the questions that we are asking ourselves, and that's how we are looking towards transforming our business in these critical times. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Priya. We'll quickly jump to Mr. Mohammed. Any opening comments from your side?
Good afternoon, Prakash, and the panelists, and good afternoon or good morning, whatever you are, to the attendees. As Prakash said, my name is Mohammed Al-Fanishi, and I'm the Chief Information Officer for the Landmark Retail Group. I'm sure most of you know who we are, but just to give you a quick introduction, we have some 2,300 fashion retail stores scattered around the Middle East and Southeast Asia. And we have, of course, our brand family in India, and the lifestyle and Max and so on and so forth. So our focus is effectively to support fashion needs for customers from the birth all the way to the silver age. And for us, it's been quite an interesting journey, as you mentioned, Prakash, about how can be genuinely a digital organization support the expansion of our business and connect more with our customers. So I'll be really keen to share with the present kind of our experiences, some of our failures and some of our learnings today.
Fantastic. We'll jump to Mr. Krishnan. Titan obviously is a manufacturer through retailer. So you got the end-to-end value chain. So Mr. Krishnan, opening comments from your side. Would you mind unmuting, please? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, and thank you for having me on the panel. So Titan, as many of you are aware, is India's largest lifestyle products company. And we have a store network that is in excess of 1,800 stores in India alone, right? So obviously, because of the lockdown, the digital front has gone up manifold. And so therefore, what as a digital team, we are focusing on is how to bring customers' digital discovery and engagement with us as close as we can to the store experience. And in some use cases, it's actually possible to deliver a very different experience through the digital medium, which cannot always be matched by the in-store. So we are not just looking to catch up and match. Obviously, we are looking for elements where we can be different and probably even more refreshing than physical experience. So I could go on with use cases, but let me stop here for the moment.
Fantastic. No, I think we are keen to hear from you. Very interesting stories we chatted about. Vetri, any quick thoughts from your side to open?
Yep. I'm Vetri Selvan. Vanakkam to all. So first of all, thanks to CII connecting the thought leaders, visionaries, bureaucrats during this pandemic situation, creating a platform to exchange ideas to be ready to the new normal. So first of all, thanks to them for setting up this platform. And second, about our fleet, we do give complete visibility, 360-degree visibility in the warehouse, on the road. So the first and last mile visibility. So we do track industrial forklifts, access controls from compliance, safety point of view. And we do deal with the top retailers, and most of the Fortune 100 companies are mostly food, like Nestle and Pfizer. So there are a lot of companies so we deal with on the retail area. So one of the main focus points is not only having the raw materials and the workflow to manage it, but how the pandemic situation has thrown light is like the raw materials and the supply chain is so diversified, but we are still, therefore, we still have the capability and workforce, but still due to the unavailability of raw material during the pandemic situations, especially on the PPE kits and as well as mask, we had a strong thing. So I will be happy to discuss on how supply chain has been critical. And also from a background point of view, I have been in AI with my computer-aided process planning in the visual management with Ford experience, and then moved on to data analytics and big data with Six Sigma to put together a compliance and controls in place. And off late, my expertise had been more on learning on food safety and pharma, especially also following up on FDA, the new norms. So would be happy to share some experience from that perspective.
I'm sure these are very relevant in today's times, Vetri. Thank you so much. I wanted to start off with the most pertinent question. All of us are very keen to understand from the panelists on how are consumers reacting to the situation, right? Obviously, retail is so close to everyone's heart. We all spend a lot of time shopping, be it malls or online, whatnot. But pandemic has kind of put a jolt to that thing. And we're very keen to understand how consumers are reacting. Are their behaviors changing? In fact, I was chatting with Mr. Krishnan the other day. Even when the lockdown opened a bit, I actually went into a Tanishq store for my anniversary purchase. So obviously, but I'm one of those olden age shoppers, right? So always like to walk into a store and so on. But we're very keen to understand how has consumer behavior changed? How are they reacting? And especially how are you adopting digital technologies to address this situation? I see a lot of nimbleness, a lot of jugaad, as we would call in India, right? Frugal innovation. But maybe we'll open with you, Krishnan, right? Your comments on the consumer reaction and how you're reacting to that.
Sure. So I will not get into an analysis of the economy and the impact on sentiment. That is certainly a topic for a different forum, a different context, right? But we are seeing consumers still inclined to buy, right? And as a company in a certain sector, we are very, very concerned about sustaining that desire as well, right? Now, yep. We all know all the jokes about how people dress for work from home, right? But it has a very serious impact on many industries, and we can analyze that for several years, right? And we are also one of them. So how do you enable customers to digitally connect to us? And we have been on this journey for the last nearly 4 years, right? But what we are seeing is very accelerated adoption, not just by our consumers, but by our store colleagues as well. So we have very fine use case stories. For example, a customer comes onto a website. We engage a customer on a live chat, invite the customer to connect through a video shopping experience with our store colleagues or with our warehouse colleagues. So at Hosur, our manufacturing team maintains a warehouse with our products and people who can display them over a video link. And then the customer is able to experience the products remotely, see how they look, right? And obviously we have very high resolution, good quality imaging as well. And so therefore, a customer can schedule a visit to the store. After all, it's a physical product and customers do like to see, touch and buy. But many of our customers, understandably so, would be unwilling to spend the kind of time they used to, right? Jewelry shopping all said and done, 90 minutes, 2 hours, very easy to spend, right? But today, customer concerned about the safety, even though we follow the highest safety standards in the country. So you can shortlist over a video, decide your wish list, book an appointment on the web, come to the store for an efficient 20 minutes, see the merchandise, select, contactless payment, move. Or if you are sure of the merchandise yourself, and many of our customers have a long-standing relationship with our stores and our store staff. So there are many cases in the recent weeks of customers paying digitally and delivering home. So we are seeing those stories. In aggregate, how's the demand? I think that's, like I said, a different discussion, right? We really hope it picks up. But we are seeing this accelerated digital adoption and a digital first approach from our customers to be increasing very fast. So we also have augmented reality on our website. You can try out jewelry and spectacle frames, and we are shortly coming out with complete bridal try-on. So you can actually wear a virtual Tanera sari and wear multiple items of jewelry as if you're preparing for your wedding and take a photo of yourself as a bride. So they're getting better and better, but we are seeing that adoption and it's a very good trend and we are continuing to support it and enhance that.
Fantastic. Clearly looks like, there is deep consumer focus using digital.
Oh, absolutely. And I focus on jewelry because it's on jewelry because it's a complex product.
Absolutely.
But watches, for example, e-commerce has been on even before COVID and has certainly picked up, right? The aggregate demand story, like I said, is a different one, but we are seeing digital purchases as a very welcome trend.
Fantastic. I think great innovation. Talking about interesting product line, maybe we'll switch to Priya. I think that's a very different line, health and wellness and those kind of products. So Priya, it would be great to hear from you on what is the consumer reaction now. Could you unmute yourself, please?
The perils of technology, right? I'm sorry. So I think one of the things that saw growth in COVID, these trying times, was immunity. People started taking health seriously. The supplements started booming, and not just one company. I think everybody started talking about supplements. Everybody started talking about taking care of their health. One of the things that somebody told me early on was the economy is not doing well because we are taking care of essentials only. And supplements, healthcare, immunity products became a very important essential. So early on, we didn't see. So even before COVID hit, we had realized that India is talking more of health. It's talking more of immunity, health products, and also it's talking more of Ayurveda. So last year, beginning of last year, we launched our own product line of Ayurveda. It's made in India. It's completely Indian products like Tulsi, Ashwagandha, and all those things. So we were kind of gearing up towards this trend. But like nobody had expected, this just came and sat on our head. From a customer perspective, obviously the demand increased, and the increased demand switched completely to online, because the first thing that happened, the complete lockdown saw a complete shutdown of shops. We have 73 shops in India, and most of our business was being run offline. We had just launched our e-commerce platform in December of 2019, and we were in the phase of slowly and gradually building it up, stabilizing, and by February we had seen about 20 to 30% traffic move to online. But we were taking our own time. We were kind of seeing things and all until all 73 of our shops just completely shut down. And in March, I remember all of our traffic moved online. 100% of our traffic moved on. The thing that we were planning to do in about 3 years happened in 2 months, and on a platform that was just built. Like you said, the products are very touchy-feely products. The person wants to see the product. He wants to know what is the benefit of these products. So quickly, we had to create a lot of content, like Krishnan said, a lot of things that would make the customer experience the product. So a lot of content, a lot of videos, a lot of how-tos, things that we were depending on our distributors to do had to quickly move on to online. And what is the benefit of product A versus product B? Why should you take Tulsi? Why should you take Ashwagandha? Ask the experts kind of things. So things that we were really taking our own time doing had to be expedited really fast, because the connect between the customer and the distributor and the company was suddenly lost. So that's where we had to put our energies and get the customer back. The other thing that we did was we created a lot of new age digital assets, digital leaflets, catalogs, and all these things. We also, in the middle of COVID, launched our chatbot, which is where a lot of people, because there's only so much load that a call center can take. So we went back and we launched a chatbot, which takes care now of about 40% of our queries already get routed through our chatbot. We added transactional queries, so you can really ask about your specific order if you're logged in, and it's integrated to the website. So a lot of different kind of out-of-box thinking, which probably for our business would have taken a little bit of time. But what I see from COVID experience is that it just shrunk everything within to a 2-month window and made us think with the agility that we had not done so far. We were that is what the challenge was that was thrown at us. So hopefully we have learned our lesson and we are kind of working towards that now.
And that's amazing. And I think when we spoke, you also talked about reorienting from a store-based model to an extreme online type of a model, which I was amazed, right, at how quickly you kind of reoriented. So thank you so much. I think that was fantastic. I'll quickly jump to Mohammed. Mohammed, I think we can get some interesting perspectives from the Middle East side, right? I don't know if pandemic was as intense as it's going on in India, but it will be great to get your perspective from that side of the world.
I think Christian and Priya have covered some fantastic points, and I'm taking notes as well. So I think first of all, there is a lot of uncertainty now. Uncertainty about many things. You ask a good question about, so what is the customer now? Actually, we don't know. It's an evolving question. But there are a few things that are kind of emerging. So people are starting in many places, at least in the Middle East, to come back to public places and traveling kind of locally. But what we're seeing as well is even when they do come back, that kind of the numbers are flattening, but they're flattening kind of at a lot less rates than pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. So that gives you an indication that you're not going to get the business that you had before. So you have to be a little more innovative to go and find that kind of gap that COVID has left. And more and more kind of behaviors like socializing, the number of people you're going to socialize with, the visit that you're going to make, kind of are presenting some opportunities for us. The other thing, of course, is that what we've seen as well from the customers is the frustration, because the mobility is constrained by a number of things, political, health, and that is creating a frustrated customer. That he's used to be mobile, now he says, no, you can only go to these places, you can only travel to this. So but at the same time, what we've seen here in the Middle East, for example, because we could not travel, is a lot of money is not spent on holidays, on travel. So all that cash is starting to manifest in local buys. So the local economies are becoming a lot more important. And of course, as kind of Priya and Christian has mentioned, the customer now is a lot more health conscious, kind of very frugal, and highly kind of reliant on digital to make big decisions. And this is kind of an opportunity kind of for us, at least retailers, to engage differently. And the other thing as well, talking to people around the room here, how many of us have their full workforce back to the office? So, and going forward for the short term and medium term at least, so this working from home is going to create a new market. So where you see kind of retailers that kind of want to offer solutions for people working from office, like, particular wear for individuals to do interviews, so on and so forth. So clearly, kind of, we're seeing a new era, but I'm not sure how clear the picture is as yet. And for us as fashion retailers, clearly the one lesson, the big lesson is the digital or the omni-channel is now a very important factor for retailers in the past, because e-commerce is kind of a small portion, not a lot of effort. People want to be digital, but it costs a lot and it drives a lot of disruption. But now, every retailer you ask, it is absolutely imperative that the transformation happens and happens fast, because it's no longer a question of a luxury or a brand experience. It's fundamental to the survival of retailers, and I'm sure for other industries as well. So the short thing, from India, of course, you go in kind of through a rough patch, which we have gone through, and some other parts of the world, and I'm sure you'll come out of it strong. But for us, we just have to be extraordinarily attentive to the customer. And by that, we mean this is where big data is going to play a massive game, because you need to understand, you need to analyze, you need to kind of predict, so you can offer experiences that customers are demanding from us now.
Fantastic. I think that's great inputs, Ahmed. And I think when we were speaking, you used this phrase, which I was very tempted to steal. You said, we are always ready for the customer journey, right? Whichever time it is. And that's a fantastic approach.
I think it is absolutely that. Kind of when we talked, it's about the fundamentals have not changed. It's about it's about, do you understand your customer? Well, the customer is changing. And it's changing in front of our very eyes, and it's taking a lot shorter period for that change to manifest. So it's very important for us, and we talk about, so what do we do in the future? What do you do to capture these attributes, these behaviors?
Absolutely.
So that way you can be responsive. So it'll be interesting conversation.
Yeah. And I think, it's very interesting. All three of you talked about omni-channel, very interesting innovation. Priya talked about switching from store-based model to extreme online model. Kristen talked about reserving products online, picking up in the store. You talked about omni-channel. What this also means is, to fulfill this promise of online, supply chain needs to be far more agile, and there needs to be a lot more innovation all the way. But even in this time, it needs a lot more attention and digitization. So maybe I'll invite Vetri to comment about what's happening on the supply chain side, and what's the innovation out there, Vetri?
Yep, sure. So when we say supply chain, so out of the manufacturing, designing is like you design exotic cars. But why? But out of these three, I say the most important thing is supply chain. How come designing exotic car is not that exciting? Because I think we are at a war now. So COVID is a war. In a war, if you see, if you have all the resources, the war team needs to have food, ammunition, and hardware. That is a military supply chain. But the whole problem what we are having is, due to the COVID situation, the supply chain is broken. So think of, in a war, there is no food or ammunition or hardware flowing in. So there is no war can be won without these three things. This is the same situation we are in. So to fight with the COVID in US, at least it was very evident, and everywhere else, it also for the test kits, right? So we needed test kits, and everyone was like, it's war footing, do whatever it takes, bring in all the Fortune 100 companies, ask them to do it. But the two important thing was the enzymes were in Germany, and the injection molding was done in China. And Germany, for varied reasons, they had to put an embargo that nothing can be taken out. China had the same constraint. So suddenly we have all the machineries, even a well-oiled machinery, to ramp up. Takes time. And then the only way to put in place was, there was agreement signed with the German company to manufacture in-house in US. It took time. And at the same time, for the injection molding practices, the alternatives was done through HP's 3D mechanism. So And then everyone would have seen that like all the Fortune 100 company leaders were at the White House lawn trying to decide how to take care of this war footing. So the important thing comes into picture is what the realization was, whatever you have, it's not possible to do without the supply chain being operational. That's the reason I said in the beginning, supply chain is the key in here. So so supply chain is the key, how to manage it and how to control it. So for that, the visibility becomes a very important thing. That's the market we are in. So last 2 years, the Gartner report says this is the focus for any supply chain, the real-time transportation visibility, because everyone wants to control. Like when we say emergency medicine, pharma, it becomes very, very important, right? So how are we going to take it faster and to the right patient, and you have limited resources. So it's no longer even the road infrastructure, that how fast you can drive. It's like how fast the information can be transferred and the process can be put in place. So we divide into three things. So in the raw material needs to be made available. Then you need to have the second thing to processes to manufacture it. And the third thing is the information overlay, which connects all these things. So one of the things is the US government invited Walmart on the war footing to help them instead of Amazon. So it was like big surprise for a person like us, right? We think, oh, Amazon is a technology leader, but the real thing is Walmart had the real infrastructure, distributed infrastructure, so they can convert a store to a warehouse, but Amazon just depended on warehouses. So the importance of the supply chain is re-emphasized in this case, how well you have been distributed. So, but there is an importance on the third case, which overlay, which Amazon very well does, and also the transportation network, right? Walmart has their own fleet, and they have been into the visibility, which Gartner says is now very important. They did it 15 years back. So they had the most efficient supply chain and the transportation cost to do it. So when we speak about all these efficiencies and think, that's when during COVID also, supply chain plays a critical role, and the visibility gives an efficient tool, and we need to manage. And then becomes our important topic, the technology, how it plays. Yes, supply chain is required. The technology, when we speak, so we need to optimize, and that has been age-old models on the AI side, operational research. But when we come to now new norm, which is the trust, transparency, and efficiency, suddenly you have to push into the system, because no longer you go and see, you test the product. And when it comes to food and pharma, it becomes more and more complicated. Earlier, you go, choose your product, see what is, then you buy it. And now you suddenly has to open up your channels globally, because one of the countries closed down all the borders, then where do you go? So suddenly you have to open up the channels. So that's where the blockchain comes into picture. So blockchain helps in building with the distributed ledger, immutable systems, and the digitization complete. So the tools like Food Trust, which IBM efficiently uses for food supply chain, because it's all becomes very relevant, because there is so much waste when you go into fresh foods. And for example, in case of fisheries, the market is $140 billion industry, and China handles 75% of it. The second is India. So when you speak about these things, and there is a problem of genuinity, there is always contamination risk in food as well as in the fisheries, misidentification, mislabeling. US has mandated country of origin to be mandated. So how do you are going to ensure all this? That's where the blockchain kind of technology makes it very, very relevant. And I touched on pharma, and to give an insight into how in India it is very important. Currently, if you see the Siddha medicine, for example, right? All of a sudden, that there are two main suppliers, I think, Tamcol and Imcoms, but both of them have sudden surge of demand. And if you see the revenue in the last year compared to period like 4 months, it will be like around 52 crores. But currently it has increased like around 10 times more. Even without a policy level decision making, India level, a national level, we are seeing supply chains through the supply chain monitoring, extensive usage of the Kabasura Kudinir as one example. And now with the additional proofs coming in that it has been 100% efficient when you go early in the stage, and you need the people are consuming it, there are controls and compliance measures to be put in. That's where we had to have like around 350 pharma, Siddha pharma companies before 10 years. But when the good manufacturing practices were put in, around now we had only 100 left because they couldn't cope up with. But suddenly now we are saying there are 100 companies, but now we are putting additional technology constraints on them. How will they cope
Absolutely.
up? So that's where the government needs are required. And for example, the Kabasirukudi can be neighboring states manufactures tablets, but in Tamil Nadu, they say there is no policy to, it should be in raw form. But the place where it is origin, we are constraining it. So the policy level changes to be made so it can be more easy to consume, easy to control, make it more transparent, and it be trustworthy when things are working and the trials are working. The supply chain needs to be made more trustworthy. So I request the government is making excellent effort with the multi-net, which will diversify, connecting every village in Tamil Nadu and all over India. The network infrastructure is going to be the main, and also the new tech university, which Tamil Nadu government is taking to skill tech, I think they call. These all are very much required and need of the time, which is going to help us match the technology needs and the demands and put it into efficient use. And it's very important, the support with the STPI, the Ministry of Information Technology, Electronics and Information Technology, and everyone sponsoring this this CIA Connect, because everything comes together. So the technology needs and the supply chain demands can be leveraged to win over the COVID situation.
Super, awesome, Betty. Absolutely, great points. I know we have another 8 or 9 minutes to go. I just had one more question, which I'll point at Mohammed before we start wrapping up. One of the important things is as companies react to COVID, I also was curious on what did you do within your enterprise? I'm sure you have operations across the globe. What about the buyers, merchants? How did you all get them to work from home? Any insights for a minute or two, Mohammed, will be fantastic.
Thanks, Prakash. I think, first of all, when this thing hit, it looks like a lifetime ago. But you have to imagine that kind of our first priority was, because we did not know the scale or the impact, is how about 50,000 people, how do we keep them safe? And away from harm? So that was kind of a key priority. And for that, we instigated like a whole executive team in every area, every function, to maintain the safety of our people. And if there are situations where people are impacted, we deal with them accordingly. And kind of we have been Landmark has been quite lucky, I suppose, but very successful in implementing that. But to me, the second priority, of course, was how do I ensure that these 50,000 people are doing their job? Now, there is video, there is Zooms, Teams, WhatsApp, but for enterprise like ours, you need to ensure that business processes and supply chain activities happen. So it was really important for us to ensure that the connectivity from a business process perspective, because that allowed us quite a lot of agility. And the third thing, because the impact is not just our people, it's our partners, our support partners like Cognizant and so others. They have been impacted as well. So there was a demand for an agile IT operating model that has to adapt. So there was a lot of fluidity between my roles. So somebody who was doing projects all of a sudden was forced to answer calls for support. Somebody who was doing architecture decided to do project because we need to do a particular. So we had to call in for every skill there is in support of our work. But I must say, and this is kind of coming back to the conversation about supply chain, and I would agree. It has been kind of one of the fundamental success of many companies, because you have the frontline workers that actually almost like sacrifice their health to go and fulfill, deliver, return. And along with the health workers, I'm full of admiration for that entire thing. But the other thing that we were kind of forced to do is to kind of extraordinarily be agile, where you study these in forums, go and get certification, but COVID was a massive accelerator. So we deployed entire e-commerce solution in 3 weeks. That would have taken us 6, 7, 8, 9 months. We had to change processes because the laws keep changing. and the laws within country, between here in the Middle East, between the countries in the region, and so it was a requirement for us to adapt a kind of this and produce a lot of minimum viable products as an IT organization for development. And I think going forward, a lot of those were successful. We failed in some cases, but we did not stop and dwell. We just moved on to the next challenge, the next thing. And I think for us, because we don't see the end of this for some time, a lot of lessons have been accumulated. And a lot of technologies that were like being put back burner are coming back. We reprioritized our entire portfolio within 2 weeks to focus on what matters rather than all this kind of fantastic initiative that will give some value in 2 years' time. So we had to reinvent ourselves while we maintain the support, not only for our colleagues to ensure they're productive, and they are, but ensuring that our customer still trusts our brands. And this is something that's really important for many as we come out of this crisis.
Absolutely. Great insights. And I think you also talked about moving to cloud and all that. I think those are fantastic. I know we are running really short of time. I will start inviting closing comments with one focus, right? Obviously, retail has always leapfrogged digital, right from e-commerce, mobile, and so on. And I think we've faced an interesting situation the last few months. With this, what are your views on the plans, your plans for the next 2-3 years, right? Do they dramatically change? Are you accelerating things and so on? So maybe I'll start with Priya. Based on this, what are your plans for the next 2-3 years? What would your digital investment areas be?
Yeah, so I think, like you said, I think what has happened with the corporates is that they've understood that it all works online. I mean, that's what has happened. And so we are all thinking of things in a different way. We are looking at how we can reduce our physical presence and move everything online. We are looking at how we can engage with customers digitally without having to have a physical person explaining things. We are looking at a lot of assets to be created which explain the product on their own, chatbots and things, as digital assistants. We are looking at products which will enable the distributor to get insights into what the customer behavior is like. We are looking at engaging with the customer in such a way that we can measure the ROI of every single communication, every single product that we are sending out. So, I mean, I think a lot of things are changing because these 6 months have taught us that, it's important for us to not look at things in a face-to-face world, but on an online world. So you can sit anywhere and be able to connect with your customer. I think a lot of importance is being given to the fact that experience is critical. The customer needs to come to our site. The customer needs to keep coming to our site, and customer needs to be kept happy. So things that were being from that perspective, a lot of training that we used to do for our distributors is all 100% moved to online. And I don't think it's going to come back offline anytime soon. So I think everybody has looked at this phenomenon and accepted the positives of it. And that's what we are going to take with us even after this whole thing is over.
Fantastic. Krishnan, about Titan, your plans?
I think one thing is clear, and I think Priya just mentioned that post-pandemic, and I really hope we'll be able to use that term very soon, right? In its fullest sense.
We really hope, yes.
We do see that behaviors have changed and will remain so. Okay, some weeks back, for example, we conducted a new product introduction program, a Mela, for all our franchisees. And for the first time in our company's history, it was entirely digital. And the digital experience, as conveyed by my colleagues, I mean, we created the portal for that. And my colleagues, as well as the franchisees, I think they've kind of come to the consensus that this is the way to do it, right? So certainly face-to-face meetings are extremely important, valuable, right? It's a human business, but there are many things where the superiority of digital and the sheer convenience of it, right, are going to certainly be a big factor. What it needed was that first experience. And now that folks have seen how it can be done when done well, right? And we're only getting better at it. So many interactions will be digital or at least start digital is certainly what we see. And we are also on various fronts, which would be so many to name, whether it's AR, whether it's video calling, live chat, bots, all technologies we are deploying, and obviously massively personalizing as well, right? Customers have been consenting to share their information with us over the last several years. Our loyalty database is, I think it should reach 20 million by this financial year. And we are able to reach out to more and more customers at the right time with the right offer. And now that they are also digitally much more engaged, it becomes that much more convenient, whether through WhatsApp or whether through the app, to be able to reach out at the right time to customers who have already digitally adopted various modes of interaction. So we see this continuing, intensifying in the years to come.
Fantastic. So great insights. Last 30 seconds, Mohammed, from your side.
I think for us, our sole purpose is to gain the trust of our customers back. Ensure that they can come and shop in our shops or online, knowing that we are a safe environment to do so. So that's number one, our priority, along with keeping our workforce safe and sound as well. I think we have to kind of focus on delivering innovation in fashion and differentiators, of course, and support effectively a new profile of our physical stores. And then the store now has to kind of come at the end of that supply chain to drive a lot of value, and we invest in heavily in those technologies, along with what we've done in the past in terms of investing in the cloud and kind of digital platforms. But I think more and more, as I said to you, we need to personalize our offers and our services to the customer. And the only way to do that is you have to understand. To understand, you have to have data, lots of it, and then understand, analyze it. So I think for me, analytics, data science is going to be quite fundamental to drive a competitive advantage. I think blockchain, in particular for supply chain, is going to play an important element to drive efficiencies of the new laws and the norms and what COVID has kind of deconstructed. And internally, with the remote workforce, RPAs and IPAs are going to play quite an important role to still drive efficiencies. And then, of course, try and deliver kind of augmented digital experiences to the customer. And everybody's talked about that. Absolutely. But finally, my hope is that kind of some bright scientists in India find the cure very soon for us.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Vetri, last 30 seconds from you, please.
So as I said earlier, you cannot control what
you went on mute, Vetri, sorry.
So what I said is you cannot control what you cannot see. So we need to put controls in place and also facilitate the connections from, for example, in case of agri, to farmers to retail directly. So the platform like Nambike Inayam, which Tamil Nadu government is trying to put in for the blockchain platform, should also facilitate the end user as well as the growers. So there's one of the applications other than health and identity management and other applications. Similarly, on the foreign countries are also trying to, they call it Agrota, I think. The UAE is just putting a blockchain platform just to procure from Indian farmers directly. So these kind of changes are coming in. So we need to have our own platform and the kind of consumers. And another example is in Nigeria, they are connected 18 million consumers to 1 million growers. So these all going to be spread all over the world. So it's not only in Western countries. So we all need to be ramp up. And that's one of the ways we should be able to win over and build the trust, transparency, and efficiency.
Fantastic point, Vetri. Absolutely. I think thank you, everyone. We really are running out of time, but I'll quickly summarize. These were great insights. I think all of you talked about how anyway you were all adopting a retail journey in using digital and so on. Obviously, it's been fantastic to hear about how you've used digital to very quickly react to pandemic, be it switch to online rapidly, provide that physical digital experience using video call, video chat, buy online, pick up in store, trial, and things like that. Mr. Mohammed, you nicely talked about how to really get your enterprise ready for digital by adopting cloud-based work from anywhere type of thing, apart from what you're doing with your consumers. Vetri, I think the supply chain insights were phenomenal. I think blockchain is here to stay. I think supply chain has always innovated with RFID and visibility and so on. I think blockchain is the next big thing. But throughout all this, what I clearly saw is even as you look at future, the consumer experience is at the core. How do you constantly be ready for the consumer journey, personalize her or his experience seems to be at the core. And I'm sure, as we get out of this pandemic, and I seriously hope we get out of this soon, we could see most of what you said in action in a very hybrid model. I think that's what it looks like. It's not going back to the past. It's not totally different, but it clearly looks like a very hybrid experience that will prevail. With that, really thank you, CII, for inviting all of us to talk about this. But it's been a great experience. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and stay safe.
Thank you.
Arun, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Prakash. Thank you for the wonderful session. Thank you for moderating it. And we also, on behalf of CII, thank all the panelists who have shared their wonderful insights of how power of technology can help in the retail industry. So thank you so much. We would now move on to the next session in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Subbu.
Hey, good evening. How are you, Manish?
Good, you?
Yeah, pretty good. Nice to
Yes,
see you there. I
same
think,
here.
yeah, Mr. Guru is also there.
Okay. Hi, Guru.
Yeah, maybe
Hi,
you
everyone.
mute. Yeah,
Good evening.
okay.
Good evening.
Good
Excellent.
evening.
All right. Maybe Ruben, should we start? Would you like to give 1 or 2 minutes for others?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Subramaniam Kandasamy. My name is Arun and I am from CII. So I'll be supporting you from the CII side for today's session. Thank you for joining in. We would start in another minute. I hope we have Mr. Guru Prasad and Mr. Manish Patel joining us. So we could go ahead, sir. If everybody is okay with it, we can start the session. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, let me thank CAI for giving us this opportunity to talk about, the technology opportunity, growth opportunity, what we are seeing, getting back growth with the power of digital technologies in automotive and transportation. That's what we are going to talk today. Myself, Kandasamy Subramanian, you can call me Candy. I am working with Ford. I'm the director for global manufacturing engineering, and I'm responsible for digital pre-assembly of vehicles and powertrains for all programs which are in the product development pipeline from manufacturing point of it. We also do visual builds. We also conduct simulations, material flow to achieve the desired jobs per hour. We also use the CAE tools, to avoid the physical verification requirement wherever we can. As a part of Ford, I joined Ford since 1998, worked through various functions, and also I had an opportunity to work as an ISC in Germany, Brazil, and Shanghai. I got totally close to 30 years of experience. With me, I take this honor to introduce Mr. Guru Prasad, who is the regional president and managing director of Bosch Automotive Electronics India Private Limited. Guru is with Bosch since January 2018. He also heads the project house of electrification within Bosch India. Guru is with Bosch since August 2008 and held various engineering management roles, including Vice President Electronics, responsible for ECU design and development, Electronics Control Unit design and development. Before joining Bosch, he was with NXP Semiconductors at Singapore and the Netherlands in the area of semiconductor development for mobile, personal communications, digital televisions for almost 15 years. Guru holds a bachelor degree in electronics engineering and also completed EGMP at IIM Bangalore. We also privileged to have today Manish Patel, who is the CIO of MG Motors. Manish is a visionary and goal-oriented with demonstrated experience in various activities like planning, developing, implementing cutting-edge information solutions, which are all focused to address the business strategies. Is very skilled to bring the benefits of IT to solve the business issues. That's the most important thing while managing cost and risk, combining cutting-edge management thinking and a startup mindset. Very experienced IT professional, demonstrated history of working in automotive sector, having various skills including business process, analytical skill, operation management, IT service management, and IT strategy. Has got very good competency on business process reengineering, strategic analysis, internal consulting, budget and cost control, vendor management operations, and also very good at crisis management, problem solving, negotiating, and finally operating in outsourced environment. So thank you very much for joining us today, both Guru and Manish. With this, maybe let me start sharing some of my initial thoughts, and then we will take it from there. Arul, is it possible for me to share my screen?
You should be able to do it, Candy.
Yeah.
Panelist, yeah, you should be able to click on the share and just
Yeah.
go from there.
Right, now I got the control. Excellent. So let me share. Right. So, this is what we are talking about, the power of digital technologies, automotive and transportation to get back the growth. So let me just give you a view of how we see the city of tomorrow will look like. Right. This is a Ford point of view. We believe that the roads with so many cars will disappear, and it will come down because of all these autonomous vehicles and the connected vehicles, which we are going to see that. Not sure whether the video is moving. Right. So we see that more space created on the road. There is a dynamic shuttle service, e-bikes, autonomous vehicles, and then there are other ways of more access to transportation, more green space coming, and then autonomous vehicles again. Significant population of them. Advanced high-speed mass transit, high-speed drones, all of those things will exist, and the transportation doesn't need to be, a personalized vehicle. That's the thing which we are seeing as a technology which is moving. So our company's goal is to help people to move from one place to another place. That's where we are focusing on. Now, the transportation as a service on the last mile connectivity, the first mile is where the people are coming, the consumers are coming from origin to transit, and then transit to destinations effectively, and in between, people are going to move in different vehicles depending on their need. And the transportation as a service, this is what we are also seeing. That's one of the key thing what is happening in the automotive industry. The automotives are becoming more intelligent. the traditional cars on roads, today they have between 20 to 40 sensors. All these data are getting generated from the cars, and those data are still inside the cars because it is not connected to the external environment. Now, that is one thing which is happening. Most of the companies are focused on making that data available through the connected car. So that means we are going to see more sensors and also more data flowing out of the car, and also more data going inside the car. And then we will also add more sensors to make the cars autonomous. And the autonomous, as we all know, it has got multiple level. The level 0 is a driver with no assistance. Level 1 is you take your feet off. And level 2 is where hands off, partially automated. Level 3 is where you take your eyes off. This is what the sensors really playing that role of all the sensory what we are using while driving. So eyes off, highly automated, level 3, mind off, fully automated, and then finally the machine completely takes over. You operate like you go in there like a passenger in the autonomous vehicle, right? So there is an increase in the use of sensors driven by need and safety. The connected vehicles, as we talked about, it is connected to various elements, vehicle to home. So as soon as morning you wake up, the vehicle is there in the garage, and you can switch on the ACs, air conditioning, and all of those things as it is needed. So vehicle to home connection is happening. Vehicle to pedestrian, it can sense the people if they are crossing the road. Vehicle to network, it goes and communicates to the network. Vehicle to grid, whether it is taking the power from the grid or it is supplying the power back to the grid. Vehicle to vehicle, so it can learn from what is happening with the previous vehicle. If there is a traffic jam in a particular route which the previous vehicles is giving a signal, then this vehicle can take some decisions based on that. And then vehicle to infrastructure. Those are all the different communications which are happening because of this connected vehicle. So the data gets shared across the platform devices for vehicle needs. This also gives us a lot of opportunities, right? The ability to communicate better, intelligent navigation, customer insights and engagement. This is where, if the vehicle is crossing a particular mall or approaching a particular mall, if there is a special sale or discount or unique thing which is happening, then it is possible for the mall to pick up all those cars which are passing through that area and engage them, tell them, hey, this is what is happening. If you want to come in and check, infotainment is another big area. Productivity while you are driving, you are also able to use your time very effectively. Telematics and predictive services for your cars, maintenance, and all of those things, plus, of course, the safety. So the connected vehicle provides a lot more opportunities. When it comes to autonomous vehicle, Ford is doing this pilot in Miami, where the person is coming out of the railway station, and once she reaches the entrance of the railway station, she summons a car, autonomous car, which is somewhere in the nearby area, and then it is all happening through the app, and then the app also gives the arrival time and where exactly the car is. And once it reaches the particular, her location, she comes out, and the vehicle welcomes the rider. Then she confirms, yeah, that's the address I want to go. Then start from there. Then the screen provides a look of how things are happening around her, and gives riders peace of mind. Of course, in this vehicle, even though it is autonomous vehicle, you will see a driver there because the technology hasn't fully matured yet. But once it is fully matured, we won't see those steering wheel and a few other items which you are seeing now. And it is able to sense the pedestrians, and then it really takes you to the area where you need to go, and then it parks in the place designated for it. and from there the person takes off. So that is the autonomous vehicle the company is working on to deploy in 2021 in US. Of course, it will take, as we all understand, a lot of time to come back here. But what happens with this autonomous car? You have quite a bit of sensors which is generating data, for example, camera, radar, sonar, GPS, lidar. All these things are communicating, and that means there are 4,000 GB communication happens per day. And some experts have already understood that one autonomous car is equivalent to 2,666 internet users. That means we definitely need 5G and maybe a little more than that. And all these data needs to be handled, and the network and the systems provides. Again, if you look at it from the opportunity perspective, there are more opportunities, and we all saw that from the connected car to the autonomous car. So with this background, I really wanted now hand over to the panelist, Mr. Guru, to talk about how from Bosch perspective they are seeing the technology coming, and how it is going to provide that kind of growth opportunity, or what is it we are seeing from not only from Bosch perspective as well as from a component manufacturer perspective of the auto industry. So with that, maybe if I can invite Mr. Guru to share your thoughts, that will be awesome.
Thank you, Candy. I think you set a wonderful context. You almost covered everything I would have said anyway. So while you did it from an OEM perspective, but you covered mobility in general. So I would say, I think the auto value chain as a whole is ripe, or it's primed for disruption. So with the changes that you pushed or put out through your slides, the auto value chain completely is ripe for disruption. That's the number one thing I would stress. We come from one of the largest, I come from one of the largest auto tier ones. We do a lot of technology for the likes of all the OEMs like you. We work a lot on autonomous driving. We do more patents than anybody else in the area of autonomous driving today. We do a lot of fundamental work. We do a lot of component engineering. We do a lot of subsystems. We provide technology to the entire auto world. So there, I would say, with the disruption in the value chain, also what is changing in my view is the distinction between a mobility service provider and a progressive mobility player, OEM, tier 1, tier 2, tier N, material suppliers. All this is completely changing. You didn't talk specifically about electric vehicles. I think the convergence of electric vehicles, you talked about telematics, connected vehicles, then autonomous coming in. The cars of the future, and you put out a nice slide around it with 4,000 gigabytes of data. Cars of the future will emit more data than CO2. So probably no CO2, but they emit far more data. And then how do you consume it? How do you make sense of it? And how do you use it to actually drive the car, not just drive the car, but also provide a lot of services, provide services to the occupants, but also to the external world. So all these are absolute new challenges, plus I would say great opportunities for the auto industry to capitalize on. Telematics is coming in a big way. We already see a lot of it in the Indian cars. Today we are supplying telematics solutions to a lot of OEMs. With telematics come problems like firewalling, cybersecurity, and these are all absolute new terminologies in the auto world. I mean, there were cars 10 years ago which had no way you could talk to a car other than at a service center. Today, cars can be reprogrammed with new features like what a Tesla does on the fly, and you have a new feature tomorrow. So these are things that certainly make a big difference. And you briefly touched upon it, sensors. I mean, sensors, software, and AI will revolutionize the auto industry. That's a key change that we also foresee. We're putting a lot of effort on these aspects. Sensor fusion is a big development in the auto world. You can't simply make sense of the hundreds of sensors that are there in the car without fusing the data, making sense of it, and then deriving value out of it. So that's a great development that we foresee coming up in the future. A huge amount of software. I think the cars of today already and the cars of the future, the amount of software in it is going to be humongous, and that's something which is a fundamental change to the way auto industry is dealing with cars. Also, I would the last point I would stress right now is the massive amount of electronics. So with the amount of software that comes in, the AI that has to run in the car, on the edge, and in the infrastructure, the amount of electronics that gets into the car, be it you talked a few about radar, LIDARs, optical sensors, image processing, the amount of electronics that comes in is really, really massive. And the amount of computing power that comes in is also massive. So all this requires the auto industry to look very different, gear up for the future in a very different way, and start looking at it as a series of opportunities that we can capitalize on. I would say the Indian auto industry is maybe a step behind the global giants in these areas. But I wouldn't say when we look at how we leapfrog from a BS4 to a BS6, it wouldn't be far when at least the consumer part of it, the in-car entertainment part of it, and all these things will leapfrog just as quickly as they do in the West. I'll stop here. I'll hand it back to you. Maybe Manish has a pretty good perspective coming from MG. I think they're leading this wave with a lot of stuff, doing things differently. So maybe he has a very nice perspective to add.
Yeah, thank you, Guru, for those comments. I think some of the comments what he made is absolutely relevant. For example, the cars are going to give more data than CO2 what they are emitting today. And the sensors, softwares, and AI is going to be much more than what we can imagine. And then the electronics, computing power, all that provides a lot of opportunity, both from OEM perspective as well as from the customer perspective, as well as from the disruptions happening in various areas of opportunity. So with all of that, maybe now we would request Manish to share his thoughts on how he sees these technologies, what kind of disruptions we are seeing, and how we see this as an opportunity and take it forward. Over to you, Mr. Manish.
Thanks, Candy and Guru. I'll just take a couple of minutes, share my screen if I have the ability, and just walk you through what you guys have just talked about and give you insights of. Guru, do you need to release the screen for me? Oh, Candy, sorry.
Let me see if I need to.
I didn't occupy the screen at all, so I think.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I did.
There
now.
you go.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, okay.
nope, I'm still not able to.
Sorry, I think it is. Give me 1 second.
Maybe.
I think it is with Guru. It is with Guru's. Sir, you need to move that ball to Manish.
So what
okay.
I need to do?
Or maybe.
Guru, on the participants corner on the right-hand side, if you can, yeah, there you go. Great.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
All right, should be able to see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So, you talked well, Candy, about the disruptions coming in from a connected vehicle perspective, and then going future, shared mobility, autonomous vehicle, and things like that. So, basis that we had four pillars from a company perspective. So, innovation is one of them, which takes us to the journey of connected vehicle. So there were two predominant factors which we consider in innovation. One, obviously, is how do we as a OEM differentiate in a market like India, and how do we create a disruption? So those are the two things that we continuously work on. So having spoken on the connected vehicle, I'll just give you an insight of what we did, and then we can have an internal discussion. So our thoughts when we launched the first internet connected car in India, we were asking the question, what does a customer expect when you say it's a connected vehicle, right? Two things. First thing that clearly came into insight was he obviously needs to be away from his cell phone. So what can we give to a customer that he will be glued on to his vehicle rather than a cell phone in his car? So we said we want to give him a great display. So here when we launched the first vehicle, Hector, we gave the portrait display. We are just about to launch our premium SUV vehicle, which will be having a landscape display, as you see below. And then it's level 1 autonomous also, which you talked about, right? So the premium SUV is going to be a level 1 autonomous vehicle in India. So these are the two core factors which we said we would like to work upon. Now, what do you give to customers? What would they be thrilled about? So the technology has to be really intelligent, okay? So we need at least the phones to be mapped to the screen. That's a given with the Apple and Android CarPlays and things available, right? What more can you give? So intelligent apps. So what we decided to give intelligent apps, not as many as that a customer would get confused, but core apps. Again, from a regulatory perspective, things are kind of not as open as developed countries like US or Europe. It's still a very confined telecom regulatory environment that we have. The other thing is how can we provide updates to a customer just like your smartphone, right? So obviously mobile application is given. How do you do your application refreshes? How do you fix application on the fly? How do you push more performance into the devices that you have on your vehicle? So we also provided the ability to do FOTA, which is firmware over the air. And along with it, we started even pushing applications onto the head units of the vehicle or the infotainment units of the vehicle. Again, as you pointed out, how does the car remain connected while you are at home? We thought it a bit differently. We said, let's take an example of a peak summer of 48 degrees, right? I'm sitting in my office, my car is basking in the sun. So can I have it remotely switched on? And I have a very cool car to sit in by the time I'm about to just go in and sit in and drive off. So we provided those functionalities as part of the mobile applications. We also prepared ourselves, and we also provide the customers with data, right? Simple data, but analytics, a lot of analytics behind it, which could hopefully be useful. And I see it coming very fast here. His or her driving behavior, right? Braking patterns, acceleration patterns, sudden turns, things like that. That data, if provided to an insurance company himself by a customer, might help him reduce his premiums, right? So he has a good track record of driving, not overspeeding too many times in a day while he's driving, So all that data taken, give it to the customer, he takes it and then does whatever he likes to do or negotiate with the um, insurance companies that we have. Watch connectivity then came in. It's a given now, so we have to provide the watch connectivity. So basic functions which we can do, again, from your mobility perspective. And again, I mean, I have a last slide. Again, I just want to stress one thing here. See, a connected vehicle is a complete ecosystem, okay? We having launched the Hector, when we did that, that was the left side of the slide that you see. Having launched the ZSEV, which is the first electric internet car, we had to build another ecosystem, which is to bring in the charging environment, right? The car has to be, now the driver or the owner wants to see how many green points is he earning, right? So on the right hand side, you see a complete ecosystem which is related to EV, right? So again, I mean, the connected world or around a vehicle is something that is not just driven by us as an OEM. We need component OEMs to be working with us. We need telecom suppliers to be working with us. We need application suppliers to be working with us, and they entirely bring that as a common environment. One fails, it just doesn't work, you know. So this is what we are right now from a connected vehicle perspective. As I said, we are also launching in next 15 to 20 days a level 1 autonomous SUV vehicle. So let's see how it progresses from there. And I just have one saying, you know, I mean, this was told to me by a friend when I was explaining him how the autonomous thing works, autonomous behavior or the vehicle works. He says, you must be kidding. You know, in India, we already have autonomous. If the owner is sitting in the backside of the vehicle and the driver is driving it, he is already having an autonomous vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So, autonomous in India is not a new technology, he says.
Yeah.
So that's on a lighter side, but I think we are coming quite close. I mean, fully autonomous vehicle is far away in countries like ours, but at least level 1 can be started off and then see how level 1 behaves and then move to the next levels of connected and autonomous vehicles.
Right.
Thanks, Candy.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Manish. That was, very, very insightful. What you clearly demonstrated is, at the end of the day, the first question you ask is what the customer wants. That is exactly every company is now aspiring, which is a very, very relevant and simple question to ask, right? And that's what we are also pushing it on the design thinking. All those elements are coming into the picture. So that was really nice. And also, as you rightly mentioned, how we use this connected vehicle to benefit the customer, right? And also how this provides opportunity, like you mentioned, for the component supplier as well as for the ecosystem to go and develop a lot of opportunities for them to generate some service, right? Which can be really leveraged. So thank you very much for sharing those valuable insights. Maybe if I could ask a question to Guru first. The CAI has got a lot of SMEs, MSMEs, and also other IT related companies. So from your perspective, where the automotive things are moving, and also even though there are so much data and so much things are coming, it is not necessary that those needs to be processed in that particular location. It is not location dependent, right? With those kind of opportunities coming, how do you see the industry like SMEs, MSMEs, and other companies needs to prepare themselves so that they can participate in this growth? Would you like to share your thoughts, Guru, on this?
Okay, so maybe these are a little bit my personal thoughts. For a change, I think, or rather, let's start it this way. Auto industry has been a sort of a walled garden where there have been a certain structure of OEMs, tier ones, and it's been a rather controlled industry where things have flourished in a very specific way. But like I said in my opening remarks, the value chain is certainly ripe for disruption, and the playing field is becoming far more leveled now. And Manish showcased the ecosystem of app providers, and I can bet half of them are startups. Half of them are small companies who are just getting into the software industry, or making their first apps, getting into the process of trying to be unicorns. So this is the dynamic in the auto industry as well today. And you will be surprised. I mean, the number of startups and small companies now active in the electrification area in India is huge. A lot of them are on the service, providing a service, but a lot of them also want to come in and do components. A lot of them also want to do design services. So the auto industry has certainly seen a new dynamic. And the smart ones, the more adaptable ones, the more intelligent ones will certainly make it good in the auto industry. And I wouldn't say that this is something unique in the Indian context, but it's happening all over the world. I mean, Europe has tons of startups, tons of mobility players coming in. If you look at the amount of VC capital that went in the last 2 years, 80% of that went into developing new startups, new small companies, all of them innovative, all of them trying to do something new in the auto industry. So I would say the disadvantages of being a small scale industry or small scale company or even a startup are starting to fade away in the auto industry for sure.
Right. Excellent.
While there is certainly a place for the big ones, I mean, the big high volume production is still the forte of the big companies like ours, where there is a lot of quality conscious production, reliability. These are all still valued at the big companies, but there's a whole new dynamic certainly coming into the auto industry.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Guru. So if I go back to Manish, maybe we will have this one question, and then we would wrap it up. So from your perspective, how do you see 10, 15 years from now, the auto industry, and also how the suppliers and the dealers and all of those ecosystem, how do you see in next 10 years it is emerging, in your thoughts?
So, I know we are in a terrible situation, which is COVID, right?
Yeah.
But again, it has provided a lot of opportunities for OEMs or corporations or companies to just completely take a right turn and see how can they digitize their business, for example, right? How can we not meet face to face with a supplier, but still be able to show him what we have as an issue and have it remediated? Just to let you know, when we launch our vehicle in the next 15 to 20 days, the entire line was, we expected people to be coming down from our home rooms, but because of the pandemic, we couldn't have them, right? So virtually each and every nut and bolt was put together on the assembly line, and we started the production. So we just couldn't believe that prior to this pandemic, right? So we always thought that a handshake is necessary, a person physically is necessary to help you out, and that's how life was. But with this situation that we are in, we completely took a turn on the right-hand side and said, we need to think out of the box. How is it going to work out, right? Coming back to dealers, suppliers, same thing. I mean, for us as an OEM, as an example, we have provided tools to the dealerships. When a customer walks in, he doesn't need to necessarily touch a product, right? I mean, we have sensors around the vehicle where virtually he can see the functionalities of the vehicle, and to ensure that he doesn't touch anything which can infect him, for example, right? From a customer perspective, so we have test drives which do not require to be physically in the showrooms. The customers can book them. Deliveries, we have made sure that if a customer really doesn't want to go into a showroom, we can make the deliveries happen at his office or it is at his residence. On the deliveries, what we also went a step ahead was to ensure that a customer probably, if he is very well satisfied with the vehicle that he has seen with his friend or somebody else or a colleague, he can just go online and order it. I mean, we just take booking money, right? We just give him the on-road price. He makes the transaction, pays it off to the dealer, and he is ready to take the delivery of the vehicle at his house. So again, all touchless coming into play, right? Same things with supplier in a different from a different process perspective, but similar things happen at the supplier ends also, right? In a situation like this, we don't have the ability to bring in suppliers at our site. If you're localizing something or you have an issue with a component, things like that. So virtually, how do you make sure that he understands, he is able to provide a solution, we go and implement it, and things are taken care of.
Right. Excellent. So with that, once again, I really want to thank you as well as CII for this opportunity. This has been wonderful panel discussion. Thank you very much for your time. Arul,
thank you, Candy. Thank you, Guru.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the panelists and the session chairman, Mr. Prakash, for taking this session. It was a wonderful session and a lot of insights on the session. So thank you so much. We would now move to the next session. I would, before I move to the next session, I would like to thank Mr. Kandasamy Subramaniam, who has been the session chairman, Mr. Guru Prasad, and a managing director of Bosch Automobile Electronics, and Mr. Manish Patel, CIO of MG Motors, for joining us today and addressing the delegates. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We would now move to the next session. In a minute's time, the next session would start. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hello.
Good evening, Chairman. This is Arun here from CII.
Thank you, Arun. Can you hear me, Arun?
Yes, Chairman, I can hear you. I will be assisting you, Chairman, for your session. So we could wait for another minute, Chairman.
Yeah, no problems.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My band looks pretty poor. Sometimes you might lose the so it's okay. As long as you guys can hear me.
Good evening, delegates. So we welcome you to the next session for the day at Connect on day 4. The next session would be on agriculture and water. We have Mr. N.K. Ranganathan, past chairman CI Tamil Nadu and water ambassador of Grundfos Farms, who will be the session chairman. Mr. N.K. Ranganathan, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Today we have 3 speakers with us, Mr. Jitesh, who's the CRO of Cropin, and Mr. Venkat, CEO of Trace, and Mr. Ramesh Sandanan, the former Chief Innovation Officer of the IIT. I will not introduce every speaker because we're going to take away time already. We've lost a little bit of time. I'm sure you'll get all the data for that. But let me quickly jump into what the context is all about. We are talking about unlocking the transformative power of digital technologies in agriculture and in water management. Digital technologies are a given in any area, and more so in water. Why water? First of all, water is a resource which is scarcely sort of respected compared to some of the other resources, although it perhaps is the most important thing in life. Growing population, urbanization, increased demand will lead to reduction of per capita water that is required. And most people don't realize that not a drop of water was made or destroyed from the time this earth was born. But as we are increasing in population from a million to almost 8 billion, from a billion to almost 8 billion, the quantum of water available to each person is is getting lower and lower. And very shortly, if we don't do something about it, India will be declared a water scarce nation. Where does India use most of its water? Obviously, it's agriculture, which is why it's nice to sort of link agriculture and water and see, look at smart ways of managing them. Agriculture uses almost 85 to 90% of India's water. So it's very important that we look at use the quantum of water per acre of land that we have or per hectare of land, at the same time doubling or tripling the production of crops or vegetables or fruits per acre or per hectare. So if you look at the main components of sustainable agriculture, see, water sustainability and food sustainability are intertwined, and so is business. Businesses will exist only if they have water. If they don't, they will die. So it's very important that we look at things holistically, but today we are focused on agriculture. So if you look at where digitalization can happen in agriculture, it can start right from the GIS mapping of the place, the sources of water, whether underground or where the rain falls or where the water is stored, soil management, crop management, the type of cropping patterns, weather, water management, disease and pest management, and waste management. All these can be interlinked digitally today. And that can further be taken to also managing your equipment, the farm equipment, whether it be tractors or plows or pumps or whatever you have. So if you look at sustainable water water management, that is the very foundation for prosperity and growth. It's very, very important that we manage the entire cycle from source to use and return to source, which means treatment, reuse, and disposal very, very efficiently. Now, if you look at what agriculture has in terms of digitalization possibilities, we can look at a few buckets. One, like I said, soil, water, and weather. Improved soil management, mapping, stresses that are there in the soil, the environment, the natural resources, remote sensing and prediction of disasters like flood or drought, etc. We could also do in crop production, in seed production systems, in farm mechanization, farm management, precision farming, what you call as drip irrigation, micro drip irrigation, fertilization or fertigation as we call it now. All these post-harvest management and processing, all these could be digitalized and looked at very holistically. We can just go further, right down to the market and agribusiness areas, where efficient procurement, storage and supply of produce and processed goods, sale of produce goods by farmers and better market intelligence. These are all the areas where we can, I'm just setting the context of what we can do, and some of the speakers will talk more about what is possible. So if you look at agricultural technologies, like I said, so starting from planning to seedbed preparation, to planting and seeding, and to harvesting and processing, all these can be digitalized, data collected, big data management, cloud sort of source, saving things on the cloud and allowing people to actually use this big data to see how they can produce, how they can predict behaviors in the agricultural area. Water management and fertigation is very, very vital. Crop stress management is nothing, and then we can link it up with the weather conditions that are even today available. It's a question of synthesizing many areas into one holistic area. So what do we do? Like we said, we have said we can do mapping. Today there are technologies available even at CII to map 1 meter by 1 meter of all land. And quite a few of the districts in India have been done since a tool called WattScan. From there, we can see what kind of crop should be grown and where it should be grown. What's the quantum of water we have? And we have embedded sensors now. Soil sensors, moisture sensors, weather sensors, which can all talk to each other. And using these telematics basically, and using all these sensors wirelessly, we can sort of get all the data and have predictive analysis and adaptive technology to ensure that we produce more crop per drop. So this is very vital that we see this. I will not take too much time, but end my introductory talk with one more thing, which says the future of farming, especially in urban areas, is vertical farming in tall structures, tall buildings, soilless. What we today have, hydroponics and aquaponics, where plants are grown within buildings, within polyhouses, where everything can be controlled, including each plant can be monitored and the right quantum of water and the right quantum of fertilizer can be delivered to the plant based on what the plant requires. Then not only the quality of produce, the quantum of produce will also increase, and we will perhaps have enough to produce to feed this growing world, especially in India, at the rate at which we are growing. We do not have another India to produce, so we need to sort of look at changing the way. And what better way than to sort of bring in digitized or smart agriculture or digitalized agriculture. This is very vital. So with this, I will stop at Mr. Jitesh, the CRO of Cropin. Like we discussed, we'll keep our discussion to 5 minutes to 7 minutes maximum and have a little bit of time for questions. Go ahead, Jitesh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ranganath, and good evening to everyone who is attending this event from wherever across India. And if you're from any other parts of the world, then good morning, good evening, wherever you are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, like the chairman said, I'll try and keep this short and simple in terms of what we believe are the amazing things that we are able to do using technology in the space of agriculture and all the allied spaces. I'll talk to you all about some of the use cases on how they are impacting the industry, and then I believe towards the end we'll have some question and answers. Little bit background on Cropin. Cropin is a full stack agri-tech organization. We are about a decade old in the system in the country, and there are 3 key pillars of solutions that Cropin offers. One is we provide the whole farm digitization system and solution, using which all the variety of aspects that are involved in cultivating something on a farm is taken care of by our system. Now, this will include something as simple as digitization of the farmer. By that, I mean capturing his name, age, etc. Also capturing the GIS coordinates of the farmland, and not just the coordinates, but the boundaries as well. Because the solution that we have to offer really relies on the exact contours of the plot. And then once we digitize the farm and the farmland, then we start sending out advisories. Now, advisories could be related to weather, could be related to some natural calamities that are about to occur. It could be around the best practices on how best to grow your crop. And this advisory is very, very specific to the farmer, to the location that he or she is in, to the crop he is growing or she is growing, and the sowing date as well. So our advisory is very, very specific and very, very individualized. In addition to this, the advisory also goes out in terms of what input chemicals to use, what sort of irrigation methods to use during your entire cropping season. And ultimately, we are also able to provide services around managing your farm as a P&L. So as a result of that, from the stage of sowing to the stage of harvesting, I have digitized the entire operations of that piece of farmland. So that's a core pillar of what we offer. Now, as a natural extension to this, because I'm able to offer farm digitization, I'm also able to offer backward traceability. So, for example, a tomato which is grown on a farm that has been digitized by Cropin, you go to a More store, you pick up the tomato, you scan the QR code, and you'll get to know the entire history of how the tomato was grown. Was it grown sustainably? Right water and irrigation methods were used, right chemicals were used, so on and so forth. Now, this is very critical because depending on what the end consumer or the end market for your produce is, you can do the entire digitization, and consequently your traceability will work out for that particular use case of yours. And then the third unique pillar that Cropin works on is using satellite monitoring. We provide predictive analysis on acreage, health, and growth. And I'm going to talk a little more about that. Like I said in the beginning, because we've been doing the whole farm management solution for almost 10 years, we have captured significant amount of crop and farm data around the world. As of today, we have digitized close to 7 million acres across 3 million farmers in 52 countries for almost 500 crops across 9,900 different varieties. So not only do I know what a capsicum does or how it behaves, but I also know what the 10 varieties of capsicum or the 20 varieties of paddy, right? So that's the level of digitization we've managed to accomplish. Now, using all of this ground data, we've created some AI and ML models, which are then trained and tuned by the ground data that we've been collecting. This AI and ML model is then overlaid with the satellite imagery that we capture through a variety of constellations and satellites that we use around the world. And the output from this is we are able to tell at any given point in time what is the sown inventory of any particular crop. So we are able to predict the crop. We are able to predict what the stage of the growth is. We are able to predict what the health of the crop is. We are able to showcase what will the potential yield be for this crop in this particular region. We are also able to predict 15 days in advance what will be the possible pest and disease attack. We are also able to showcase what are the water stresses that are growing in that area. And as a result of all this, like I said, we are able to predict the yield as well. All of these are possible for us both in terms of historical analysis. So we can go all the way back up to 2 to 3 years. And we are also able to do in-season monitoring. So these are some variety of things that we are able to do using the whole digital technology and remote sensing in the agriculture space. Let me talk to you all about some of the use cases that we are able to solve using such technology. Now remember, the data that I've collected over a period of 10 years is roughly 2 trillion, and then I'm using a lot of deep learning. As a result of all of this, I'm able to successfully go to some of the largest private lending institutions in India. So your private banks, your PSU banks, some of the large PSU banks, they're all using, and some of the cooperative banks, they're all using Cropin solution to help bridge the last mile financial inclusiveness gap that exists today. Many a times when a farmer comes to a bank asking for a loan, the farmer does not have enough documentation. What we are able to do in working with the banks is the underwriting officer at the bank is able to log into Cropin system, is able to punch in the survey number or the address of that particular farmer. Our system then gives out information in terms of historically, what has the farmer done? Has he been growing watermelon? If yes, what has the growth been? What has the yield been? What is the value of that yield? And as a result of all of this, this becomes an important metric that the underwriting person evaluates the farmer on. Most of us on the call right now have credit scores. Probably majority of you have good credit scores. I have terrible credit score. But when you look at the farmers do not have a credit score, right? So what Cropin is able to do for these farmers is able to provide the agriworthiness report. And using this, the agriworthiness score, the banker can then make an informed decision whether or not a loan has to be given to the farmer. Also, because I'm able to capture the stage of the growth, the banker is also able to connect with the farmer throughout the sowing season, make sure tech intervention is being provided to ensure he's using the right amount of water, the right amount of chemicals, etc. And ultimately, his yield is good. And a result of that, the NPA of the bank reduces. Right? So that's one of the use cases that we have found a lot of traction both in India and elsewhere. Similar lines, we are doing a lot in the insurance space, both in the private as well as the government. In India, the insurance program is run by the federal program, which is your PMFBY, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And as a consortium partner of the PMFBY program, we are digitizing several districts around the country and able to provide intelligence around the whole insurance use case. When should a farmer be given an insurance amount? And are we able to predict in advance that there is going to be the risk of a flood or a natural calamity? And also ensuring that this insurance amount reaches the farmer in time. And then we are also working very closely with the agri input chemical.
Time is getting over. So quickly come back to you.
Sure, I'll just wrap it up in a minute. So, the other use case that we're working on is the agri-input chemicals. Because I'm able to showcase what crop is growing at what stage and at what health, your pesticide company, your fertilizer company, all of them can understand what is growing where, and accordingly, they can do their production cycles and warehouse management to ensure that the right chemical is available for the right region for the right crop. So those are some of the use cases. Happy to take questions, I think, towards the end, but let me hand it over back to the chairman. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I think we'll have some time to come back to you. Now I request Mr. Venkat Maraju to speak. He is CEO of SourceTrace. Venkat? You have to unmute yourself, Venkat. We can't hear you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ranganath. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and whichever part of the world you're coming. Yeah, good morning, good evening, and thanks to CIA for hosting this wonderful event, and thanks to my co-panelist, esteemed co-panelist, as well as the chairman, Ranganath Krishna. So, SourceTrace, a little bit about SourceTrace. SourceTrace is a complete platform for digitizing agriculture value chains. Okay. So we basically offer solutions throughout the agriculture value chain to enable digitization in order to achieve three things, right? One is one of the primary things is we want to empower the smallholder farmers. And we want to basically increase the trust and loyalty among the entire value chain players. And third and most important is the sustainability. We want to drive sustainability into agriculture. Why these are important, right? So we take a very, very, while we are a for-profit company, we are also deeply rooted in social purpose. Why this is important, right? We have about 400, 500 million smallholder farmers in the world, and they average holding is like 2 hectares, and either illiterate to semi-literate this farmer group is. And while they're feeding the planet, they're also one of the people on the margins of the society. So we basically and they support about 2 billion people in their families, this 500. So it's a many aspects agriculture is essential for human survival, as well as it also impacts the livelihood of a large section of the people. So basically, we, as a planet, the human population is growing. By 2050. We are going to be, 9 to 10 billion people. We already have there's enough deficiency with the nutrition available in some parts of the world, and 600 to 700 million people cannot feed have a sufficient nutrition. So given all that, we expected to produce at least 50% more food by 2050. And there's not much land left. Countries like India, China, Asia, Europe, US is fully exploited. The land left is in Africa, a little bit virgin land. So it's a challenge of our generation, and I think we'll overcome. So one of the important thing that we leverage is, we take this for granted now, but what this mobile has done in the history of, if you look at any technology in the long history of humankind, no technology has such a profound impact as the mobile phones and connectivity, especially when it comes to the people at the bottom of the pyramid, right? This is significant. You take from automotives to vaccines to even internet to initial phase of internet. The mobile has profound impact. So this power of digitization, digital power that you could carry anywhere, as really has a profound impact. And agriculture, obviously, as I said, it impacts rural population. It's essential. So it has a very, very, very profound transformative effect, and that is what we leverage. So the kind of solutions we offer is, as Jitesh mentioned, most of these things start with the first mile of agriculture, right? We hate to call the telecom people love to call it last mile, but we think it's disrespectful for agriculture, because agriculture starts at the farmer and farm. So like to call it a first mile agriculture. So when you starting with the farmer, farm, crop, and the best practices. And another important thing is we have very solid certification platform. We support 15, 16 different certifications to induce the best practices and sustainable growing of the crops. And so taking that, and then the post harvest, right? You have to basically bring the produce to the market, to the consumer, and we manage the entire value chain. And then in the this situation, basically what is happening is the food has become a global commodity. I mean, you never know, I'm drinking this coffee, where the coffee originated, how processed it, and in that also brings a lot of bad things. I mean, is a good thing is, I mean, maybe in some cases the farmer, is able to sell to but also we don't know what is happening. The crop that used to grow next to village is compared to now it's traveling long distances, and what kind of food you're eating. Some of the industrialized production methods as well as unethical practices you see, it is scary. So we basically enhance this trust and relationship among all the players throughout the value chain, so that in order to make agriculture sustainable, as well as provide the farmer, if he's using the best practices and sustainable practices, to be able to find the best market available wherever it is. So we have a number of solutions to enable this value chain, including traceability, warehouse management, including a lot of digital payments. So we do financial transactions throughout the value chain is another important aspect. The farmers used to take 6 to 8 weeks after they sell to cutting it down to a week to no time sometimes, with the digital payments. That is possible. So it's all about the digitization for the sake of digitization is not going to be, but there's a profound impact with these digitization technologies, very transformative, and especially when it comes to the farmer's livelihood and making agriculture sustainable. And then the use cases, I mean, we work with a lot of farmer groups, starting with on the low end to agribusinesses. We work with a few governments. We work with some financial institutions. The common denominator in all of this is they're all working with the groups of farmers. Okay, and we basically enable and offer certain capabilities to all these institutions in order to basically bring some better planning, better insights, and make the whole agriculture value chain efficient, transparent, traceable, as well as equitable is another important thing. So I'll stop there, and if any questions come up, or I think I can follow up and give more information.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thanks a lot, Venkat. And we will call on Mr. Ramesh Santanam. He's an innovation person to give his talk. Also, I have a few questions to you people. We can go and do that too. So if there are any Q&As, I would request the what it is. Go ahead, Ramesh. Ramesh?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Hope this finds everyone in the best of health and good spirit. What a turmoil we are living in today, but interestingly so it is. I've been quite involved with a number of startups and companies looking at moving into the digital space. As probably a natural corollary to social distancing, I guess. If you look at the COVID times, the fear of hunger was a very scary part of this conundrum of events. And we did all that is possible to stock up our kitchen. I'm possibly reminded of Oblique from Asterix comics. Anyway, from the current events, I'm sure all of us aspire to see a world with zero hunger. I found a lot of our panelists were talking about the digital technology and how this is very promising. I just want to take a different view on this, and I want to touch upon the key factors that could dramatically affect the digital implementation of digital agriculture. So, of course, the solution has its merits and very promising as a possible solution to world hunger. It is, in fact, if I have to describe this digital agriculture, the best way to put it is in our scriptures. It is said that every grain of rice which you consume has your name engraved in it. And that's the best form of digital agriculture: control, monitor, maximize every grain with traceability. Anyway, why digital agriculture at all? We have to, because as you all know, that the projected increase in world population, which is about 7.6 billion now, is going to move well over 9.8 billion by 2050. And 66% of the world population is going to move to the urban areas. And then, like Chairman pointed out, that 40% of the water demand in 2030 is unlikely to be met globally. Even in India, we have about almost 30% of the land which is degraded. We need about 3 billion tons more of annual cereal production. Meat demand is going to increase, and so on. So what does digital agri really mean? Is it can change how farmers farm their lands, can transform fundamentally every part of the agri value chain. And idea is to get a highly optimized, individualized, intelligent, and a very anticipatory management through technology into every acre of cultivable land and address problems in near real time. It means, in simple language, treat all the fields, crops, and value chains uniformly. Each crop could have their own agri-doctor prescriptions, like we had for COVID. So efficiency improves at every individual plant level, all moving towards greater food security, profitability, and probably sustainability. Our pundits have also said that the productivity unlocked with the digital economy could create 60 to 65 million jobs in India by 2025. But the sad fact is that about 45 million workers could be displaced or transformed. So retraining and redeployment will be required. See, and let us look at all the stakeholders who are in this agri space. At one end of the spectrum, we have the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which wants to transform the global economy, society, environment. They state that ending poverty and other deprivations will go hand in glove with strategies that improve health and education. So they have a broad view. Large international companies just want to use digital transformation in the simple context of using agriculture to make money and make it productive, of course. And how much are they going to backward integrate is anyone's guess. Individual governments are talking about tackling societal changes such as rural livelihood, women and youth employment, which are gender inequalities and so on. So that is also important. But I'm not finding a great synergy between the principal stakeholders from a farmer's perspective. The key to digitization is that effort requires the principal and major stakeholder, who is the farmer. The ground zero for this success is going to be the farmer. And let us look at the situation. If you look at the average farm size, it is about 1.16 hectares. India's 263 million farm workers earn an average of 6,800 a month. They use traditional farm equipment, totally lack funds, cannot afford the optimal farm equipment, do not have the tools for knowing weather, sunlight, and rainfall. What do you do with 6,800 bucks? 40% of the produce also goes waste. About 35% of the Indian farmers take out loans from informal sources. They paid exorbitant interest rates. Less than 24% of the gross cropped area in India is under any form of insurance. More than 65% of the farmers are not even aware of what insurance programs are. So these are the very people whom we are expecting to form the foundation of digital agriculture. We have laid out fiber optic cables, and very soon we'll have one highway hotspot in every village, highly connected. But what are we going to do about the farmer? So I have been thinking about this. I find that digital agri is just too expensive a proposition for unit micro holding from a farmer's affordability point of view. So now I have taken the liberty of proposing a possible solution which I wish to share in this forum. Let us assume that the implementation of digital agri and water management can bring in significant value in terms of productivity and big additional revenue. Today, we have the digital tools and vast amounts of information to assess the real benefits to a great degree of accuracy. There are brilliant technologies behind you, right, sir? We know that with precision agriculture, farmers can possibly increase their revenue by 35 to 65%. So if we estimate this additional revenue and create a corpus funds against the projected revenue of 35 to 65% increase in productivity, it boils down to using this optimal corpus funds to get the digital agri going. So for a sustainable digital agriculture, we need to create a stable income for the farmers. Large farms can afford mechanization. So a critical path is to develop a mechanism. As a first step, I propose a PPP company for managing the farms is established, each having control of, say, about 1,000 acres. Farmers will allot or assign the land holdings to the PP company for development purposes only. From the projected revenue, a portion of the additional income can be given to the farmers as farm usage fees every month. So they get a stable income for themselves. The PP units with each 1,000 acres can now plan and implement a more robust digital agriculture with mechanization, secure a higher revenue per unit holding, and sustain the digital agri benefits which we're all talking about. With insurance cover across the PP platforms, we can look at long-term contracts, just like the way solar power worked, something on the lines of power purchase agreement and solar, to be mailed the farmers. A long-term farm products purchase contract linked to some index can be envisaged. So this land consolidation, I believe, will facilitate large-scale farming practices and easier adoption of digital technologies. Then we can bring in the panchayats and cooperatives and farm producers organization who can be given the responsibility of running it. The 800 national, state, and research institutes of the central and state governments across India are already collecting vast information. We have seed availability from SeedNet India portal. We have the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers. The kisanmandi.com can cater to the PPs now to serve the reads of tractors, diesel engines, pump sets, and so on. So I'm suggesting that we bring this consolidation so mechanization is possible and digital agri will be very, very sound in its implementation. My suggestion also is that all farmers to get a sustaining income, which is uniform across, irrespective of the farmland output capability. We know that we are going to get 65% more, 35 to 65%. Why not convert it to funds to make this happen? So additional earnings can be linked to farmers' efficiency, in which each PP unit can take equal responsibility. In effect, we'll be capturing the value from digital applications in agriculture, which I think requires a very concerted effort from all the stakeholders together. So I want to say the national, state, and local should also invest in leading the charge for digital adoption, and that's the way I'm seeing things. Even financial services have an opportunity now serve the PPs because they have large holdings, less transactions, loans and insurance products enabled by digital platforms. We have all the know-how technology, but we need to get the principal stakeholder, the farmer. So, and this is I want to end here. I also want to say you just one more thing, that I've been involved with some brilliant scientists around the world from across the globe for over a decade, and I managed to develop some very interesting and disruptive technologies. We can substantially harness the water precipitation in the air. We have been able to demonstrate some substantial rainfall in certain areas and also show some significant agri benefits. There's another disruptive technology that uses advanced magneto-hydrodynamical activation of natural water for high agricultural production. Those interested who can call me later about this and we can discuss. There are a couple of other disruptive technologies which have been part of in the IIT landscape, and it is working great. But prior to that, I think we should start at the farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh. I have a few questions before we take the questions from outsiders. Your idea is good, Ramesh, to see if we can get a PPP kind of company, or what they have suggested now is corporate farming also, where you can consolidate lands, where you don't take away lands from farmers, but they still own it, but we get it. There's one issue. I come from a farming family. In fact, still pieces of my family does farming. We tried this out about 30 years ago. And we came across one major issue which we could not handle: the politics of the community within a village. I don't know if it has changed now, but I would like to hear from you. Is that changed now? Are we still going to grapple with this castes and party politics which are there within the village, which we found was the biggest block for us to look at in consolidating, although some people said they would, because that would make a huge difference for India's agriculture, very huge difference, the way you put it, and it's doable. This is the only area, so I would like to hear from you first, even though you spoke last.
See, as I see it, you're putting the money ahead of all this caste and politics, because you're going to tell them, nobody is going to say, I don't want money. So we are going to pay this farm usage fees. And we're not taking anything in return. We're just saying that we're going to pay you to sustain your livelihood. How many people can stop that? I mean, I would tend to believe that if we can if you can consolidate and say this is the kind of money additionally that is going to come, nobody's going to say no to it. I think we should bridge it through that.
We should find a way. We should. And you spoke about affordability. Very well put. 6,800 rupees per month is nothing you can afford. So I would like to put this question to Jitesh. Jitesh, how do you make all this technology that you're having more affordable? In India, there's only one word that you have to write in capitals and underline twice: affordability. If you have that, there is enough market.
Absolutely right, Ranganath. I mean, if we didn't have affordable tools, then nothing would happen, right? So absolutely agree. And especially in a country like India, where price unfortunately takes precedence several times over everything else. So there are a couple of things that Croppen does. One is we work with enterprises who then obviously in turn work with farmers, right? So for example, your large production houses, like your the large FMCG companies, the large contract farming companies, the large paddy wheat growing companies. So we work with them, and through them we work with their farmers, right? So the bill for a lot of our services are typically picked up by enterprises. So that's one of the models that we have, and as a result of that, it becomes affordable for the farmers. Number two, we also work very closely with FPOs. And when we are working with FPOs, what we have found is typically there is a funding body involved in the first 1 or 2 years tops, but at the end of it, the farmer typically sees his livelihood go up, or almost close to a triple-digit increase in his livelihood because of right farming practices, right yield, and ultimately access to marketplace because they've done all the right things. Now, once they see that, then that becomes sustainable. The funding bodies then move away, and all the farmers associated with that FPO then become sustainable and are able to afford the technology. So those are a couple of ways in which you're able to.
Yeah, I have one more question. You can take this, Jitesh, and pass it on to Venkat too. Is there possibilities of having people from farming community? There are a lot of farmers whose children have gone to engineering and are going back to the farm and doing nothing. They don't hands on into the ground till or do whatever. So there are this entire set of people whom we have found, whom we thought if we need to really increase the job, what you call market, we need to get these people employed, and we can't ask them to come to the cities because the cities don't pay them enough to stay to eat. Can we engage these engineers who are there, or even school dropouts in some areas, enabling them to digitalize agriculture and training them to take care of these things, collect the data, take care of the equipment, train them to do the job on the ground? Can we do this, Jitesh? Is it possible instead of just one company handling, we have a multi-level kind? We are a consolidator just like an Uber or something like that, and we have all these people working across it. Is that a possibility?
That's a great question, Ranganath, and it is certainly possible, and it is already happening. So some of the state government programs that Croppen is engaged in today in India, and also in Africa. Now, someone was saying that, some of the, I think you yourself said, right, some of the virgin lands left are in Africa. So Africa is a huge potential market. And we're seeing both in some states in India as well as in Africa, where a lot of this youth either, city return or just stayed back in the villages. They are coming about as what we want to call as agripreneurs. There are some of these large organizations who are building these models out. So for an example, in Africa, we work with this organization called AGRA, Africa Green Revolution Alliance, that are operating across 11 million farmers in 10 different countries. Now, what the agripreneur does, the agripreneur acts as a aggregation point for all 100, 200, 500 farmers under him. He is then responsible for acting as the CEO of that group of farmers, bringing in tech, working closely with them, making sure everything goes right, and whatever sale happens from these farmers under him, or whatever banking loans or insurances are provided, or any input chemicals that are supplied, he typically gets a margin out of it, and that's how he becomes sustainable. He is making sure all the technology is being brought to the farmers, they are adopting, and ultimately everyone's happy, like one big super family, right? So that's something that we found hugely successful.
I'll pass this on Venkat to do this, to answer from his point of view. But I would like to see this happen in one state. Maybe since I'm sitting in Tamil Nadu, so I will connect with you guys to see if we can sort of do this and really take jobs to where the people are, rather than bringing them to all the big cities. Venkat, you can answer the same one, but I have one more question, one or two more questions to you. One is that after you answer this question, which which I asked Jitesh, what is the percentage of farmers who have smartphones and how are they connected? That is one that I want to understand.
Yeah.
And these are the two questions.
Yeah. No, I think you touch upon a very important, I'm sitting in Boston or Bangalore or Delhi, talking about these digital technologies and fancy things is a very romanticizing. Okay. Uh, so I have been every time I speak we have actually as a source trace. We right now operate in 28 countries, and especially the 60% of our farmer base and the revenues come from Africa. We have a very large presence in Africa, and we basically work in some of the remotest, most impoverished countries there. So one of the things we notice is, every other 6 months, I think because of the pandemic, I didn't see anything, but one organization makes a big show and saying, okay, we are giving these smartphones to farmers and putting in their hands. And, after say some big donor funds this and it's a big show, a lot of news, a lot of this thing, but after 6 months, nobody knows what happened to this. I've seen this again and again, right from Bill Gates Foundation to ICRISAT to I know a group of my friends in Boston. They did this in Bangalore. Okay, the drones brought the smartphones in a big public meeting, and drones dropped the smartphones on. So it can be very romanticizing and crazy, but the reality is, I basically always have a problem. See, the smallholder farmer, I put it in the context, right? We have to be realistic. To make an impact, the average smallholder farmer is holding 2 hectares. This is throughout the world, and is illiterate to semi-literate. Okay, forget about the smartphones. Okay, literacy levels. Okay, basic. So at that level, how do you make an impact? There's neither scale nor sophistication. Okay, so our position is basically you need to create some level of aggregation. Okay, that aggregation it can happen through cooperatives. Farmer producer organization is the best thing. Okay, because the farmers have, and throughout the world there's a lot of push for doing this farmer producer organizations. And you can question, in India we have namesake, I don't know, 10,000, more than 10,000 farmer producer organization, probably 10% are viable. Okay, there are a lot of challenges, but at least every government, UPA government, India, at least they're making an effort. Hopefully that's a good trend to do this, and throughout the world we see that. So the scale is one thing, and then the other thing, like Jitesh said, you have to work with these institutions. Okay, sometimes these agri companies are villainized. Okay, all these big companies like Cargill and all that. But hey, it's a necessity evil. Okay, they can bring the scale, they can bring, but you need to hold them accountable. There should be regulation, consumer consciousness have to drive them to do the right thing. Okay, otherwise they don't do it. Like we work with the cocoa is notorious for deforestation and child labor, but there is a huge pressure on them to work on them. Just about every cocoa company is working on these aspects because there's a consumer pressure as well as the government regulation. So that's the only way. So you need to work with these agribusinesses, financial institutions, governments, who in turn are working, who in turn are bringing. So they create scale and some agency of a sophistication that is bringing and harnessing this technology to bring it to bear at the grassroots level. That's the only way it can happen. Okay, and you talked about affordability. The affordability is there. Okay, is there when you create scale, when you create aggregated, you can demonstrate a positive return on investment if you have a certain scale. Until there's scale, it's very difficult to. So the other question you asked about smartphone, I think I answered. The percentage of smartphones, even a country like India, I don't know the numbers, but it's pretty small. Okay, you talk about there is a section of throughout the world in this 450 to 500 million smallholder of what you consider farmers in developing countries. there is a small layer, people own, I know the statistics from Telangana government because there was a debate. There's a 2.5% of the people own more than 20 acres. Okay, that probably true throughout India. That much I know for sure. And then there is I think 25% owned between 5 and 20 acres, and between the 5 acres there is almost 70% of the farmers own less than 5 acres. And with this kind of land holding, the kind of resources, it's very, very hard to directly work with farmers. Okay. So, and affordability of the smartphone is increasing. I mean, good thing it's every day it's increasing. But to bring this type of sophisticated technologies and make an impact is you just cannot work with smallholder farmer directly. That's what I want to say. Some level of aggregation, intermediation is very, very important.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Can I add one point here? Yeah. See, the key is the broadband technology, which is critical and you will be surprised if I tell you that in connecting the 3.8 billion people still don't have it. They still don't have access to the internet. And to sum it up, 45% of the world population living in rural areas and about 20% in remote areas. Extending mobile broadband coverage to connect this 3.4 billion people, which is half, 50%, is extremely difficult. So the rural populations tend to be spread out from village to village across wide areas, making the business model of building an IT infrastructure site in such areas highly unprofitable for multinationals. So
it has to be wireless, because it has to be wireless, because that's the only thing which reaches. And in India, you can see that
you have to connect them. 3.4 billion people, which is out of the 7.6 billion, don't have access.
Yeah.
Correct.
I would like to ask.
I'm talking about 45% of the world population. 45%.
Correct.
Yeah.
So are there any questions to the panelists from the CII coordinator?
Chairman, no questions have come in.
No questions have come. So fine. So from all this, we see that it is doable, but we need to have affordability. So we need to have the stakeholders, starting with the most important stakeholder, which is the farmer at one end, the government at the other, and all the technology providers and the thinkers and the innovators. So I will not talk to CII and Suresh Raman for this connecting and see if we can get something up in Tamil Nadu, because since we are sitting here, at least we talk to the government and see if we can start a portion. So let me come back to you people and whoever else who's listening to this, to see if we can prove a business case. Once we prove a business case, once we prove that what Ramesh suggested is possible, then perhaps it can be replicated right across the other parts of India and the rest of the world too. So if there are no questions, I would like to thank all the panelists. Within the short time that we had, we really discussed many things. Of course, we cannot solve everything that there is in the field, but at least the first step towards it. And the best thing is to see if we can do a little implementation where people can see for themselves what can achieve out of doing this. And fortunately, the current government is also behind this. They say more crop per drop, and they want to increase farm income by 5 times. So the ecosystem is right, but we need the right kind of implementation. So thank you, Jitesh, thank you, Venkat, and thank you, Ramesh, for having been a part of this panel, and thank you, CII, for calling us out here for having this discussion. And if I would say that goodbye, and then we'll probably meet again and be in touch. Thank you. So over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, CII.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you so much. It was really a very good session, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of involvement of the technology and taking up the agriculture in the state, especially with a lot of new technology that many of the farmers are looking at, and especially with the farmer producer organizations also taking a lot of active involvement in going in this state. We thank you all for joining, and we would now end the session. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right.